talking together about this topic. As you know, as you are aware, the last couple of years, this kind of tools has been really, really much impactful on our life in general, and not just as professionists, but as people, let's say. And the key message of this discussion that we will have together is that their kind of applications are as many as people applying it in their context. So what I will do today is guide you towards a reflection on how these tools can actually help you in your day-to-day practice, on how these tools are already helping you, because I'm sure that many of you is already using these tools for doing several tasks. But my goal is to give more awareness about what a task is actually, how to proper design it, how to evaluate it, and how to think about what these kind of tools can and cannot do. So as Afonso was saying, I'm Filippo Chiarello from the University of Pisa. I've studied natural language processing techniques for a decade now, starting doing my master's thesis, and then I continued doing my PhD. And my life has been quite busy in the last couple of years for obvious reasons related to the advent of generative AI. And I'm doing this kind of talk for many, many different audiences and introducing people to the use of generative AI. Also, please, let's connect on LinkedIn. I think you will have the slides quite soon, if not already, or you can search for me. And let's connect and let's stay in touch. This is briefly the agenda for today. So we will have an introduction, but since I think most of you is already aware of these techniques, I will be quite fast there. What is generative AI? And then I will go through the definition of a task. What is a task? What these machines can do, and how to properly define what they can and cannot do. Then, thanks to this information, we will be able to prompt design better the prompt that we write. Very briefly discussing about performance evaluation, so how to evaluate how good these machines are. And finally, but this is actually through the whole steps, we will have hands-on sessions. So I will ask you to reflect and to write actually something about your own experience and how this kind of tools can be used in a business environment. So what is ChatGPT and why we focus on ChatGPT? Today we focus on this because we have the possibility to hands-on directly. I think that most of you already, all of you I think, already has used this tool. Is there anyone that never opened ChatGPT? I don't think so, but let's ask. You can raise your hand if you never open ChatGPT, never play with it. Good. So
I guess everyone did.
Yeah, cool. So I assume that all of you know what this tool is and how it works. So one thing that maybe you don't know is that GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. What does it mean? It means that it's a generative tool, so its main goal is to generate text, now also images. It's pre-trained because it's a model that has been trained on a large amount of data, and Transformer is the language technologies that lies behind ChatGPT. So it uses natural language processing to learn from, as I was saying, a vast amount of textual data. We don't know exactly what portion of internet OpenAI used to train the system, but we are talking about 570 gigabytes of data representing 300 billion words. So as you can imagine, this is a huge model that is a black box model. So we don't know why it has the performances that it has, and we don't know why it is able to do what it does, because it has been trained on the simple task on predicting the next probable token. I'm more interested today than in the technical details in sharing with you a model for interaction. So let's have a look at ChatGPT from the user perspective. So we as users, so that I have the pointer, wait 1 second. We as users, when we interact with the system, what we do is, first of all, defining a task. What does it mean? It means that we think about something that we think the system can do. So we have seen someone else doing this task, we have done it before, and it's a task that for today, we just think about tasks that as text as input and text as output. So we're talking about today generative in terms of text production. After this, what we do is describing these tasks to thanks to a prompt. So since we are a few people now, I think we can have also some discussions directly and interact a little bit, if it's okay for you. So who wants to give me the definition of a prompt? What is a prompt? Also via chat, because I'm reading. But if you want to speak up and introduce yourself, I'm even happier.
Yes, please, guys. If you want to go ahead, please.
Don't be shy.
I guess okay. No one's.
Yeah, no problem. I will tell you, but don't think that I will not come back to you soon. So please be ready. Oh, maybe Rania, please. Do you want to go on?
Usually, because this is totally a new topic for me, so I don't have a clue. Maybe I will give a very distant answer, but usually a prompt is like the main plot of the idea that should be reflected in a text. This I know when my sons go to the English class, they're always in a story or in a presentation, there's a prompt. So I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Rania. It's quite close to the proper definition, and also Faten has wrote invite an action. Indeed. Correct. So what it is the way in which we describe to the system, we invite the system to do what? The task that we have in our mind. So we have to think about it, a translation between how we describe and define the task in our mind and how the system is able to understand what we want it to do. But we will see these in a second. The prompt is then sent to the large language model that lies behind the system that responds with a textual output. At this point, something happens behind the scene. And what is happening is that actually, when we prompt it, we expect a result, right? So when you write to ChatGPT something, you expect some quality, some kind of result. So thanks to this expectation and comparing the output with the result that we are then able to iterate towards a new prompt or to decide to take the output as is, or to decide probably to don't use ChatGPT for the kind of tasks that we have in our mind. When we start to iterate and create a new prompt, we start to actually iterate, and what we have is something very similar to a discussion. So I think that most of you already, all of you, as you said, already saw the system. So if you didn't ever open it, here it is. And the prompt is exactly this, what you write here. This is a prompt. And if you send the prompt, you have an answer, okay? So let's navigate through each of these instances, to each of these concepts of the interaction, to reflect together about each of them. And let's try to reflect about this concept in the business environment. So let's move from all the interesting applications that we can have for our, let's say, more creative or private life. And so let's reflect on the business side. So, first of all, we were talking about a user that define a task. So, first question, who are they? So in your opinion, who are the today users of ChatGPT? So let's take the perspective of a startup and let's reflect on who is interacting with the system and that is a stakeholder of the startup itself. Anyone wants to jump in? This is a very broad question, so there is no wrong answer, actually.
I guess people working in
Lama? Okay.
Lama, please. No, Lama, please.
Yeah, it's a very broad question, but it's anybody, like, if looking from a startup, so it can be any of the staff members, meaning working in planning or implementation, or and despite what role it is, there is always a way to use ChatGPT to make your work way more efficient.
Perfect. So all the people working inside the startup is a potential user. Perfect. Then let's move around the startups. Who else is using it? And this can have an impact on the way the startup works.
Competitors, users who are looking for other solutions.
Perfect. So Lama has introduced two important concepts. So first of all, yes, ChatGPT is used inside the startup. So it is already changing the processes inside the business environment. But also the user of the startup are using. So also potential clients of the startup are starting to use ChatGPT. So you already see for today that you can have, during this reflection that we'll have together, two perspectives. So the perspective of ChatGPT that changes the way in which we work, but also ChatGPT that changes the products that we make, because the people that then we are selling product or services to is more and more open to the use of artificial intelligence and is getting used to that. So this is a huge impact both inside and outside. Last but not least, what Lama said is that we have also our competitors that are using ChatGPT. This means that we have a big pressure in using it. Otherwise, we risk to fall apart and competing with people that is more efficient doing what they do. Okay.
And of course, we have the funders, the ones making a decision on financing.
Great. Thanks, Marwan. We also have the founders, so the people that actually take the decision. Depending on how big the startup is, the founders can be also a big percentage of the people working in the startup. Great. Thanks, Marwan. Okay. Cool. So maybe you know that ChatGPT has been the innovation that reached the 1 million user in the fastest time. So it had just 5 days beating platforms like Netflix, Facebook, and Amazon that takes several months to arrive to that, for years to arrive to that number. In 2023, we were discussing about 100 million monthly user, which is huge. So if we think about that, you just can imagine how many different users we are discussing. And as you said, all the different subjects and roles in a startup are impacted. So moving towards our system for interaction, what we see then is that we have the task. The task is the activity or action that has to be performed by ChatGPT, which can be categorized, as we will see later on, in 3 classes. That is generating, creating new knowledge, measuring or linking, evaluating knowledge, and translate or communicate knowledge. But before diving into these classes, I want you to go to this link that I will put in the chat. And there you will find these tables. So here you will also find some copies of spreadsheet. What I want you to do, so for example, I will do for Llama, just to show you, is to write your name in the name of the spreadsheet. You should just double click. And then we will use this template for doing some exercise in the next part. So in the first line, the first column, I want you to write some of the things that ChatGPT can do. And in particular, maybe some of the things that you are already using it for, so that we can then discuss about this. So you have 2-3 minutes to do that. If you need another spreadsheet, just go on my spreadsheet and duplicate, and you will have it. Okay, so we start having some things that people is already using it for. So for example, we have Runny that is generate new ideas, suggest innovative plans, suggest funding sources. So as you can see here, we have Runny that is using it as a creative assistant, let's say. Then we have Llama, for example, write emails, design programs, planning partner, market research insight. Okay, let's take this one, Llama. Do you want to tell us something about your use for market research insight? How do you use it? What kind of performances do you see in this kind of task, if you already tried in this way?
Yes. So I use it for insights. I think it's really useful in terms when you search something on Google, you have 100 million results, and ChatGPT can basically puts everything together and creates some sort of a structure. However, is it very reliable? No. I have to, go into the websites and make sure the data is correct, because it doesn't give accurate results, and sometimes, in many cases, outdated information as well, because it was to a certain point. So it facilitates the process, but it is not highly reliable. So you still have to do some work on the side.
Perfect. So thanks, Lama. So when we use it for things like market research, we want to have real world knowledge. So we want it to go there and find things that are real. And usually it can be bad in doing this. There are technologies that are better, like RAG, for example, retrieval augmented generation, that can support better in this phase. And this is totally different when we use it for creating or generating knowledge, because in that case, we don't always want it to be, let's say, real. We want it to be more creative. And last but not least, we have a task related to the more communication part. So, for example, rewrite emails. We are already giving it knowledge, and we want it to reprocess it and change the way in which things are already written. Another question is, so when we are thinking about what it can do, we can also think about what it should do, right? And especially when we are talking about things that should be real, or things that are related to a subject matter. So, for example, our market research, as Lama was saying before, we have to ask ourselves, is it matter that the output is true? So when we are talking about that kind of task, because if it's no, it's usually safer to use ChatGPT. So if we are using it for brainstorming, it's safer than if we are asking for information that should be real. If this information should be real, then we enter even more in the loop. Because in that case, we have to be sure that we have the expertise to evaluate if the output is real or not. So if we have this expertise, if we don't have, first of all, it's unsafe to use it because it can hallucinate, and we are not aware of this. This is very dangerous. Last but not least, if the output should be true, we are expert in the subject, and we are willing to take full responsibility of the output, then it's possible to use it by checking it. Otherwise, it's better to use some other processes to get the information that we want. Lama, please.
Yeah, I think just one funny example about this. My mom teaches at university, and she teaches like history of art and all of these things, and the material is in Arabic. So whenever she has these online meetings, and if you put the exam in ChatGPT, and if students rely on it to get the answers, they would mostly fail. Because one, they doesn't have all the information, plus it's in Arabic. So there is not enough information about this in Arabic on the internet. So it was a disaster. And many of them failed.
Thanks, Lama. This is cool. Yes, sure. Yeah, Lama make, I think, an interesting reflection on this. Does it matter if the output is true? Because if the system has been trained on data that is less abundant with respect to other data, then it's more likely that the output is untrue. And when we are talking about different alphabets, or in this case, not just different language, but even different alphabets, it's even more probable that we have total hallucination and things that doesn't make sense at all. So it's like if I ask ChatGPT to have some output in Arabic, maybe for sure the output should be true, but then I don't have the expertise to evaluate it. So it's very, very risky. So thanks for the example. What we have done to answer to this question about what it can and what it can do with my research group is doing some research on Twitter data. So what we have done is taking the first 6 months of tweets where people were talking about what they were doing with ChatGPT and created this universe, let's say, of different applications of the system. And as you can see, the kind of applications that just in the first 6 months were around were huge. So if you are interested, just drop me a message and I can share with you the paper where we also describe how we did that. One interesting thing maybe also to think about is to think about what it can't do, because it looks like today that it can do everything, but is that true? So again, take a couple of minutes, go on line 50 and let's write, you have 60 different tasks here. Let's put in bold, okay, what you think it cannot do. Cannot. So again, you have a couple of minutes.
Filippo, in the meantime,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question? A curiosity I have. Is there any AI-powered software website that is made specifically or more tailored to startups or companies to help them with their business in whatever area?
Yeah.
That you know
I
of.
would. Yeah. I'm not aware, but there is a reason why I'm not aware. I'm not aware because it's already hard to trust the big ones.
Mhm.
So if smaller ones come out, I would suggest not to trust them so much. It's better to create the proper prompts for a startup and use the big model or the closed one or the open source one, and to frame it for the purpose that the startup has.
Okay.
So, for example, there is plenty for sure of tools, online tools that can help you brainstorm about customers or whatever. My
Business
suggestion
model
is, let's stick to the standards for now, and maybe work a little bit more on the prompt than having the quick fix, because something that maybe sometimes companies still don't get is that prompts can become an asset for the company. So if you spend time in prompting the generative AI correctly, then when the new system will arrive, you already have your prompts there, and you can use them on a better system and have better results. Prompting
And
is
the same
also please.
No, I was gonna ask, and the same prompt can work in different platforms.
Exactly.
It's the same.
Exactly. Another thing that we are discussing a lot now is that prompting is also a really good way for making implicit knowledge explicit. And that's super important for startups, right? So especially ones that have strong turnover can use a prompt database. And so my suggestion is, don't search for the best specific generative AI system, but let's invest some time in creating your own startup prompt database that you can come back and improve over time.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, a couple of minutes still. Okay, so let's see some of the answer. So Llama put detect plagiarism in text as things that it cannot do, and that's it, right, Llama? So anyone finds something else? I may agree with you, Llama. Even if you want to explain it, why you're choosing this, just a couple of words, maybe.
Well, because I think you can use AI to create a tool to do this. The question was, can ChatGPT do it? And I don't think they can. So I asked it, and he said, no. He or she said no, but I can tell you how you can do it.
Yeah.
Is that a yes or no? I don't know. But the rest of the things, I think.
Okay. Perfect. So most of them like interpret sign language to text. Now with video to text, it can do that quite easily. So let's see if there was something else that was now if since ChatGPT has integrated DALL-E, also the design of a logo is doable. Okay, so as you can see, it can also do measures on text. So another way in which you can use it is not just to generate text, but also to give it text and use it to evaluate like the sentiment, how hard is written the text, and if you want to improve it, and so on and so forth. So what is a prompt? A prompt is a combination of elements that you pass to the generative model, in this case ChatGPT, which uses them to produce the output. And we will see later on which are the elements of the prompt. I think I will move on because we have not so much time today. And we will have time to write some prompts later on, more specific. As I was telling you, last but not least, when you have the result, the output, then you have to evaluate if the output is correct or not. And I will give you some tricks about this, on how to evaluate this. But we have already started discussing this because, as we were saying before, if you are asking the system to be creative, the kind of evaluation that you have on it is different than if you are asking the system to be real. So what do we need to do to become good ChatGPT users? And which are, in your opinion, the skills for doing the process that we were discussing before well? Again, this is a question for all of you. What do you think that a good person need to have to be a good ChatGPT users? And are you considering it when you are hiring maybe people for your startup nowadays? Rani.
I think the key quality is to be able to interact with the platform, and ability to challenge the responses.
Okay.
And
so
ask for more precise answers.
Good. So being critical towards the output, correct, Rani?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Ola is saying clear vision. Ola, do you want to tell us something more about this?
I think the more you use ChatGPT, the more you learn that be specific of what the output you want would give you better results. So I think for startups, if you're asking for a marketing strategy, you can't be very general. You need to be very specific of what are the components of the strategy. And I think it applies to anything on ChatGPT.
Totally agree with you. So being able to instantiate the question on a specific setting. So for this reason, it's very important to be expert on the subject matter on which we are using ChatGPT. And this is quite interesting. Faten is saying clear TOR. Faten, do you want to say something more about this?
Yes, I mean, okay. So, I mean, you want to, the question was about hiring. So, if you want to hire people, I mean, using the ChatGPT, you have to create a clear profile for them with the clarity or of what exactly you want. I agree with my colleague Ola, you need to go really specific in order to get the results you want.
Yep, great. Thanks, Faten. So let's wrap up about what I think also that we need to have to be a good user. First of all, we have to be very clear in our mind, even before, and not just on our mind, maybe not also writing down about the goal, about the exact task that we want. Because sometimes we just start interacting with it and we go towards a process where we are refining the goal. That's quite okay, but the most experience we get, the easier it is for us to exactly have in our mind which is the thing that we want to ask to it. Then properly use prompting. Prompt is a language. So we are in the process of learning as human how to properly interact with this kind of system. Third point, I think it's also quite important to know some principle of generative AI. Because it's like when we are driving a car and we don't know at all how the car works. We can still drive the car, but then if something goes wrong, it's quite hard to understand why this is going wrong. So we don't have to be a mechanic to drive a car, but we have to have some superficial also understanding of what is going on behind it. And last but not least, what also Rani was saying, we have to be good in evaluating the output, critically evaluating, and also maybe next step, be able to evaluate the performance and to measure the performance. This is super important for a startup. Please always think about that it's not that ChatGPT can or cannot do something, but it's about the level at which it can do it. So, said in other ways, when we want to automate some task in our process, we have to evaluate how good it is in terms of output, because we will for sure have some increasing in terms of efficiency there. So we have to be good in understanding if and how much it is reaching the goal that we want it to reach. So I will go quite fast because here it's a little bit more technical, but not so much, just a couple of slides. Maybe as you know, behind these kind of generative systems, there is deep learning system. And generative system had been studied a lot in the last decade. And these systems are generative models that give to computers the ability to create new forms, new output. And in particular, the technology that is behind is the generative adversarial networks. This is one of the most interesting innovations here in machine learning. How do they work? It's also quite interesting because when we have these kind of networks, we have two networks competing one to each other. And actually what they do is trying to generate an output that is able to fool another network in terms of, is this input a real or a fake image? So when this discriminator is no more able to discriminate if the generated image is fake or real, then we have what we see with ChatGPT, DALL-E, and so on and so forth. These networks has been used in many different ways. They function in a way that is very similar to our brain. You have the slides if you want to dive in. But what about ChatGPT? In particular, ChatGPT uses reinforcement learning with human feedback. So in that feedback that we were discussing before, there were also human in the training phase. And let me go here because let's have some ideas, some numbers about how the system can actually make the process inside a company more efficient. So we know that nowadays about 10% of a company revenue is budgeted on marketing for the next year to earn visibility on products and services. For sure, this percentage change from sector to sector, right? So of this investment, the 80% is on digital marketing. Again, depending on the sector, this percentage can be even higher. Of this percentage, 46 is spent on creation, including strategic planning, CEO. So, long story short, we invest a lot of money every year, depending on how big the startup is or the company is, but invest for sure a big percentage of our money in marketing and in communication. We are spending then a lot of time in creating content. And this content is not just text, so not just blogs and social media, but it's also podcasts, webinars, videos, and so on and so forth. So, as you know, we are living in the content creation era, and for each of these tasks, we spend a lot of time in creating. This is the reason why there is a massive business interest in the use of these kind of systems, because the first impact that we have seen, despite all the many things that this system can do and that we have already discussed, is on marketing. So marketing and content creation has been the killer application for this system. So if your startup is doing that, I really hope that you have already started in implementing this kind of system to speed up the process. So it's not just that they can decrease the production cost of each of the output, but it's also can increase the volume and increase the quality and consistency if actually properly used. So we see that the amount of money invested by big techs in this kind of system is huge, and we are following now in the last couple of years the big fight between Apple and Microsoft about owning actually or putting their hands on OpenAI. And this is quite interesting to see also in terms of how much the big companies are thinking that the market will grow and the business opportunities that are there. So as we were discussing with Llama before, don't just think about the generative system as something that can have an impact on your process inside the startup, but also think about how this system can change actually your products and can have an impact on the products that you are developing. So let's move to the second part of the workshop of this webinar, where I would like to start to actually give you some guidelines on how to properly prompt. To guide ourselves towards a proper prompting, as I was saying you before, we have to start thinking about the things that ChatGPT in terms of 3 macro classes of tasks. And these 3 classes can be, as we were already saying, divided in generating things, so like brainstorming, creating, drafting, listing, where we want the system to be original. Every time that we want the system to be original, we are in that part of the work. The second is on more evaluate, when we want it to be true, we want it to be real. We don't want the system to lie. And there when we ask it, where we are asking to detect, to estimate, to extract, to measure, to predict. Last but not least, when we are using it for some tasks that are related to language, to communication, we want it to be consistent in the communication. Every time we are asking it to clarify, to explain, to rewrite, to summarize, or to translate. Here you can see some definitions, but it's even more interesting to go and do a brief exercise on this to see if you grasp the concept. So if you go on line 100, what you will find is a list of tasks, and you should put an X where you think that the task belonging to a certain class. Pay attention, because a task can belong also to multiple classes. So you can start to see how ChatGPT is always on some percentage, on some amount, doing all of these three things. So please take 5 minutes and try to feel this, and then we will discuss it together.
Hi, sorry, so do we put a percentage, or we just say it can or can't do?
You should just say, okay, in draft a speech, what is doing for showing there is generate knowledge, maybe there is also some part of communications. Then analyze the sentiment with mostly measures. So just the ones that you think that is impacting Okay. So again, I take let's do the opposite. Tell me if there is any doubts on these. So now you have also the chance to reflect about that. I think that these classes can really much helping you then in think about the kind of prompting that you can do and how to, as we will see, evaluate the output, because we have different goals for the different class. So any questions on that? Okay, so now I will show you some other direction of reflection for doing a good prompt. My goal is then to start you thinking about the prompt, as I was telling to Afonso before, as an asset for your startup. So similarly to a programmer that write code, and then that code is an artifact, is an important asset for him or her. Similarly, for your startup, you should start having your repository of prompt and properly written code prompt that you can come back and improve them. So here I've tried to do an exercise of splitting up the element of a prompt. The first one, that is the reason why we write a prompt, that is the task we already started to think about. And we have the three classes that can help us in guiding us towards the proper definition of the prompt. But then let's see other important part, like the who, the reader or the writer of the prompt, the when. If you are doing a standard use or a programming use, the what, that is the form and the content, the where, that is the barycenter and boundaries, and finally the definition and the example. Let's go through each of these, and then let's put all together into what I call the prompt canvas, that is a tool that will help you then, and you will find in the Excel file, to write a proper prompt. So the who. The who is the receiver of the output of the task. So every time we are thinking about a task, there is for sure someone that will use that output. It can be ourselves or it can be another person. Please, making this explicit to ChatGPT helps it to properly write the output in the proper way. And it is expressed by the writer of the prompt and or the reader of the output. So for example, I am a student, I am a programmer, I am a startup founder, and I'm writing I need the output to be read by, okay? So all of these things give context to the system and makes it easier to reach the proper level on the communication part of the output. Second point is the when. We can think about ChatGPT not just a tool to which we give an input and we have an output once, but for which we can start to have something similar to a program. So we don't just want an answer now, but we want to prepare ChatGPT to give us answer over time. Okay. So to do so, we can focus not just on the output, but also on the input that we will give to the system. So prompting becomes very similar to a function, becomes very similar to a code that we are giving to the system. So the what then is the actual content that we want as output. In terms of form, what kind of form do we want as output? We can specify. Do we want a bullet point? Do we want a table? Do we want whatever we want? And the content is the other important part in terms of what we want. So the meaning and relations between the different words. The where is what we want and what we don't want in terms of form and content. So we are in the prompt specifying it. We can specify what we want, that we call the barycenter. We want this set of answer, and the boundary, we don't want this and that. And we can specify what we want and what we don't want, both in terms of definitions, the so-called zero-shot prompting, or with example, with few shot prompting. In this way, for example, if we want to ask ChatGPT to give us a list of AI technologies, we can ask in terms of definition, in form, put the technology in terms of form. So what kind of form do we want? Put the technologies in a table with the definition. And in terms of content, we can also say, for example, list also commercial products. In terms of example, in terms of content, we can give them some example of the technologies that we want as output, so ChatGPT, Midjourney, and so on and so forth. We can also give boundaries, so specify in negative tabs what we don't want, like avoid technologies that have not been tested in the business context. So in this way, as you can see, we have a frame to start think about what to write and what not to write inside the prompt. It's quite important to think about when we have the definition part. So we want to define using the zero-shot learning. We want to define to the system what we are interested in. So first of all, we have to ask ourselves if ChatGPT or the system that we are using knows the concept that you are expressing. Is the concept ambiguous if in any way? And if it's not, maybe, so it's not ambiguous and it's a really very known concept, we can avoid giving the definition. At that time, it's important to explain to ChatGPT what we intend with a concept. It's quite interesting to think about use ChatGPT in tandem with other resources, especially when we are talking about giving it a definition of a concept. Like we can use Wikipedia, we can use WordNet, whatever we want, or our own information to feed the system properly. Similarly, for example, that are entities or sentences that we are using to train the system, because in that way we are giving it the possibility to learn in a similar way to a machine learning system. And we can find examples of entities, again, searching on Google, on Wikipedia. So summing up, when we are prompting, we can think about these elements. We don't need to use all of them every time in every prompt. But this concept that you can come back also in the slides, I think that they can help you think about the element that you can use and the level that you can use in a prompt. As I was saying, this makes it the prompt more complex, more large. But this is quite interesting in the sense that these become an asset for your startup. And you are able also to explicit knowledge that maybe is implicit in some of the people that works with you. So my suggestion is to start having your prompt database with your form or structuring it. You can take inspiration from what we said today, or you can invent your own way. So the three classes of tasks that we were discussing before are also quite useful for assessing the quality of the output of ChatGPT. In fact, if we have a task that is a mix, if you think about a task as a mix of these three macro tasks, we can evaluate differently them. So for example, If you are asking the system to generate something, then we are evaluating how much creative it is. If we are asking a system to be true, to evaluate something, we want it to be, we want it not to lie. So we can evaluate it in a similar way as we are evaluating a machine learning system. So through positive and through negative. So we are asking for punctual information. Last but not least, if we're asking it to describe something or to explain to the right, so we want a more communicational part, then we have to evaluate the consistency, and maybe we have to use some more linguistical way in which we want to evaluate the final task. Again, together with your database of prompt that you should have in your company, you can also start to measure how much the system that you are using is able to perform the task that you are describing in the prompt. And in this way, you can take informed decisions about which system to use for doing specific things inside your company. So I was preparing an hands-on that you can do it also later on. So this exercise that I have created for you usually takes a little bit more time than now. We have maybe 10 minutes. So I would suggest you to, if you want, you can go on, and then you can come back to me if you have any questions about this specific exercise, where I'm just asking you to take the information that we were seeing on the correct prompting or some suggestion that I give you on prompting, and try to use it for your own task. And I really hope that this can be the first prompt that you are creating for your own prompt database that, as I told you, can become, I think, a cool way to instantiate knowledge and to create value for your business towards ChatGPT. So I think that now we have some room for questions if you want.
Yeah, so we have actually one more presentation, but maybe we can take a question or two. I think it might will take maximum 10 minutes, so we still have some time.
Yeah,
is there any
thanks a lot.
specific question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Filippo, once again.
Excellent.
You see me? The camera is not working.
No, we don't see you actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we see. Okay, we see your shared screen.
No, I think I have a problem in the camera. Anyway, thanks a lot,
It's
Doctor.
okay.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Doctor. Now I'll talk briefly about the AI landscape in Palestine. But before I start with that, I just want to give you a brief overview of AI again. AI is a very interesting topic, and AI is also a large science. It's like a tree with many branches, and every branch is like a module. So we have module like in machine learning, we have module in computer vision, we have module in natural language, and so on. So I think our challenge will be here is how to introduce this interesting topic to the participant in an easy and fun way. One of the tools, also I have a link here. If anyone involved in this science, there's a link here. There's a very good information there. But one of the tools that I usually share with my student is a teachable machine. So I think if I open the link here, this tool, the good about this tool is that you don't need to write any piece of code, okay? It's show the powerful of machine learning and neural network, okay? So what I need to do only is to need to get some data, gather some data, and then upload it here. And after that, I need to click the model, train the model, learn the model. After that, start the predict. So as you can see here, the example was about 2 classes of young and old people. And after I trained the model, I didn't want to go with the technical part. But after I trained the model, The prediction, for example, as you can see here, maybe this is why the camera is not working, by the way. So I think here they say, for example, I am in class A more than class B and so on. So this is one of the tools. There is also other tool which can be shown to the student the power of machine learning or neural network without they know any piece of code. Another thing I want to share here is regarding to the technology-based startup in Palestine. So now I will focus on two main things. Regarding the first point is regarding to the technology-based startup in Palestine, and the other one is regarding to the AI in Palestinian education. So let's wait a bit. Okay. Okay, so here there's a study was made in 2021. Unfortunately, this is the recent study that I managed to collect. As you can see from the scene, we have only 100 technology-based startup that during that study, and most of them are in the e-commerce and in the health and education. This is regarding to the Palestinian. And unfortunately, as mentioned in the study, there was very few % of these companies that are using AI. So here, as you can see, we can get more detail regarding to these companies. So for example, in the e-commerce, we have the Salon company or a platform. In the education, we have EduBook. In the travel, we have the Roop. And in the utility, we have Flawless and many more. So one of the companies that are using AI in our country is Flawless. Flawless is a Palestinian startup company that are focusing on sustainable water management system. They're using AI in order to help the utility to reduce their water loss and improve their process. As you can see here, this is the platform that are using. This is platform is to use real-time data analysis in order to help the utility in order to do that. Also, another company which are using AI is WeDeliver. WeDeliver is a logistic delivery startup company here in Palestine, and they are using AI to optimize the delivery route. So here we have a potential, but let's say before 5 years, I think the awareness of AI was not recognized enough. Also, I want to mention here, I didn't put it in the presentation, one of my work in AI related to Palestinian company is in the renewable energy. So my work was in how to optimize the efficiency of PV panels. I think most of you know in renewable energy, we have something called PV panels. PV panels produce powers regarding to the irradiance and temperature. So here in the AI, we can build a model which can increase the efficiency of this system. So this is another potential in the company where we can work on. Also, I want to focus here as the last point is in the AI in Palestinian education. Regarding the 5 years, okay, different bachelor program and master program has been open in different universities related to AI, like Al-Najah, Al-Quds, Birzeit, and so on. And that because of the importance of this field to our society. During the past year, almost 2,000 publication has been published from the different universities in Palestine regarding to AI. Also has, as you can see here from the flowchart, to show Najah National University how the publication has been increased during the past years related to AI. And again, this is because of the university know the importance of this field to our society. So as a conclusion to this situation, I believe that during the past 5 years, the awareness of AI to our participants, or let's say to entrepreneur, were not recognized enough. But during this time, I think the situation will be different. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matt. That was
thanks.
Very, very consistent. Okay. I thought you'd take a bit more time. It's fine.
I didn't prepare very well because we didn't communicate.
I noticed that you did.
So I thought I'm not involved, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. Okay. Well, do we have any questions either for Ahmad or for Filippo in terms of content? Any issue you guys would like to discuss? Comment on the presentations at this point. I don't see any questions here.
The presentation for
Rania,
me was really interesting. Yes, thank you, Filippo, and thank you, Afonso, also for organizing this, and thanks for Dr. Ahmad from Najah for the reflections on the Palestinian context. I'm still, I think, it's, as we all agree, this is very new topic to us, relatively speaking. It was both, it's true that we have a lot of research happening and a lot of initiatives, but the dynamics of how this concept of AI is changing and rapidly changing every day. There are new changes. So most probably when we start working on the content for the program, I don't know if Filippo is briefed on this, we're supposed to develop a learning journey for learners who are coming from entrepreneurship background, social entrepreneurship background, to help them learn how they can integrate the potentials of AI and digital transformation in their business. So, and this is why today's session, I think, was really important, because we were looking forward to see how this can be reflected. So most probably when we start working on the content, we will come back to Filippo with tons of questions. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, Rania, you are talking about university, right?
No, actually, continuing education, professional learners, yes.
Okay.
They're not university students. They have finished their first degree and now they're in the market working on building their own social entrepreneurship.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Come back to me, as I'm doing some of this work also here at University of Pisa, since I'm the head of the faculty development. So we are in the process also of preparing something. So, and if there is anything I can do, I can give you support. So please
Thank you.
When you want.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Filippo. We have hands up from Marwan.
Marwan.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, everybody. I have a question. I don't think, I mean, it's a big question. I just want to put it on the table, because it's one of the difficult ones that we're dealing with. So we work in an ecosystem that is really ravaged by, like it's difficult, it's under occupation, and more than occupation, it's being, systematically targeted and destroyed economically, socially, at every level. And so what works in our context here in the Palestinian context is basically micro enterprise, small micro enterprises. We don't have the systems and the backups. We may come up with really, like some good AI driven or technology driven enterprises that can sell products internationally, but that's going to be a very small fraction. The question is how, I don't know if you're, not just, again, I'm just throwing a question, putting it on the table. How can we use AI to support micro enterprises? Thinking of things like, creating things like value chains, creating AI systems that would identify different people who has different parts and stocks, and things that are not very technology intensive, but would require AI. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or anybody has thoughts on this. But I think this is one area that we, within this project, it would be good to reflect on, because this is where realistically we can make a difference And there should be, with all that we're seeing with AI, there should be something that can be done there. That's my question or my reflection.
Thank you, Marwan. That seems like a very complicated question, even it wasn't in your in the conditions that present themselves in Palestine. So I'm sure it's good food for thought, and maybe it could and should perhaps inform the content of the training which you're on. We'll see. I don't know, Felipe, if you have any comments on that. More of a broader question.
Actually, I can spend a word on that. Thank you, Marwan. I think it's a very challenging question, very interesting to think about. The first thing that comes to my mind is looking at the future. We will have, I think, internationally speaking, a market that will be super concentrated. So if now we are seeing big techs getting the most of the value and getting bigger and bigger, maybe it will be even more like that. And you are describing a situation where for several reasons we have micro companies, right? And how can these micro companies get into a value chain that is that has these really big companies inside? I mean, it's super complex. So I will try to give to remove the political, social part outside of the table and just focusing on the technical part, which is my expertise. Is that it's very likely that these companies then will need to train and to properly use AI in specific context, like small applications, like people very expert on a specific part of the whole chain. And maybe there will be some room for the micro companies. In Italy, the situation is also very fragmented. We have a lot of small enterprises. This is, and if you don't consider Northern Italy, but you consider from the center and the south, we have super small companies and also tech companies that are very small. And I see the one that succeed are the one that are able to find a small niche, and then they are also able to talk with the big ones. So, and how this has been created by creating small ecosystems together with universities, when people is able to get expert on one thing, get the connection with the cultural environment of the place, get expert on some social or cultural aspect of the specific set or the specific environment. And then also the big ones get interested in that because they cannot get so that also on these kind of, let's say, drill down or specific setting. So this can be a direction, I mean, or a reflection, let's say.
Thank you, Filippo. Any more comments or questions to add to the discussion? If not, I'd like to thank Filippo and Ahmad. Thank you for your time and patience. I would like to share now the evaluation form. So, and I'll kindly ask all the participants to fill it in. It's really short, so you'll take a minute or two max. Okay, I will share it now here. Thank you, Rania. Thank you, Fatan. And we'll see each other next week. Okay, for the next one. Thank you, Nidal. Munkes, you want to say something?
Thank you very much. It was interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
If you want,
Thank
let's
you.
get in touch. See you soon. Good luck.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.